George Feldenkreis, the chairman of Perry Ellis International. Regular day, depending on the age that you are. In today's, at this time, regular day is workout for an hour, breakfast, shower, and come back to the office, or stay home working out of my office at home, which I try to do once or twice a week, or come to the office and work at the office. Many of my friends, including my wife, told me it's time for you to retire and enjoy life, and so I thought, well, but I'm enjoying what I've been doing all the time. I'm not under any, I'm under stress, but that's good for a good health. But what the board did was unfair, unethical, showed a very low degree of respect and consideration for a guy who created a company that didn't, this thing didn't exist a few years ago. And now we employ 2,500 people all over the world. And they decided one day, they got together, there was a conspiracy, they got together and they decided that I'm not the kind of CEO they need. And without an interview, without a meeting to see what was wrong with me, they decided, to me it was a matter of jealousies, a matter of, I don't know, they say that the one director that I talked about, he said that I didn't respect the board enough. Let's say that I am the one who hired each one, so I don't blame anybody but myself. I'm a very poor judge of character, at least for directors. And I consider that a betrayal, and including my two directors of Miami, that betrayed me completely. They didn't give me an opportunity to explain what was wrong with me. So it was really motivated, first of all, for desire that, and so on the other hand, I had a decision to do. I mean, I have almost everything I work on my life. I had invested in the company. I never sold any large number of stock. So as a consequence of that, I control like a quarter of the company. So I have another problem. I asked him, look, I know that if it's announced that I'm really out, which they announced but in a better way, there was a big discussion, how was it going to be announced? The stock is going to drown, and I want to know if you're going to pay me the difference, or you want to buy out all my stock tomorrow or within a period of time, and then I will leave. And the answer was no. They never bought a share of stock. So they had no interest whatsoever in acquire anything because they never knew the company, and that was my problem with them. They never even wanted to spend the time. You know, in a public company like this, as complicated as this, because this is a very complicated thing that I put together. You have, we are wholesale, but we are 15% retail. We are doing business in the United States, but our international activities are probably 20% of our volume. So it's and this is not Ralph Lauren or Tommy Hilfiger, that Calvin Klein, that you have a brand that makes a big volume. This is a constellation of brands, where it's Perry Ellis, where it's 6 brands of golf. We're the largest company in the golf apparel business in the United States. It's Original Penguin. Then we have the licenses like Nike Swim worldwide now. So it's a very complicated company for the amount of business we do. So if you don't have capable people running it, this can run into problems very quickly. And I didn't have any confidence in them. And my son told me, I'm leaving. I told his son, you cannot leave because it's your money. It's family money that is going to be lost if you leave. So you have to stay until we resolve this issue. So I decided to stay. And then the next stage was, how do I get rid of the board? If I want to stay, it's either me or the board. So I have to get rid of the board. And at that point, I came through several ideas. But the only idea that would guarantee that would be if I can find the financing to buy the company back. So as I told you before, I own 25%, 20%, 25%. And I need to get down a loan for 75% of the value of the company. So the idea was, the issue was, how do I get that money and from whom? And that started the new phase that I spent almost 13 months until I did it. Well, we live in we're in the retail business, finally. We depend on the consumer. Wanted to buy a Perry Ellis shirt or a Regional Penguin shirt or a Nike piece of swimwear. So the changes that are happening are extraordinary. 10 years ago, there was a big company selling apparel that was called Sears. There was another one big company called Macy's. J.C. Penney. Sears is already in bankruptcy. Penny we expect that will survive, but it's not the same Penny that was 10 years ago. Now, Bunton went out of business, Toya Russell went out of business. There are a few companies still that might be going out of business in apparel. So the department store share of the business has grown smaller and smaller every day in the United States. The United States is over-stored for a long time. That's an old story. So the stores have to be less stores in the United States, and this has been facilitated because of e-commerce. E-commerce represents today probably 17 to 18% of all sales of apparel. And I think that when it comes to basic apparel, a basic T-shirt, a basic polo shirt, a basic shirt, more and more there's going to be a transfer to e-commerce. And those companies that are not properly invested in e-commerce will disappear. Or they have to create a value equation for the buyer that people identify that this is better because I get a better price, like if you go to Marshall's, et cetera, Walmart or Target, or I get better value, I get all kind of services, water from Amazon, because they give me a better price on the water that I can get in the grocery. So why bother to go to the grocery to buy water when I can get it in my home already cheaper? So this is changing the habits, especially for the younger generation that become more and more dependent on the so-called millennials, are totally dependent in recommendation now. It's an industry of, how do you call them, the guys who recommend what to wear, etc., influencers. So the influencers are your kid that start writing, and all of a sudden they get popular and they make thousands of dollars telling you what to wear. And it's not important anymore how much you spend on media advertising. That's why the media is shrinking, because the retail is shrinking. The demand for media is shrinking. And who is growing? Growing Instagram and Facebook and all the ways of communicating through e-commerce, through the internet. So those are tremendous changes. Those are, and it's dividing. When you see good management, like the people who run Marshall or the people who run Nordstrom or Macy's, versus poor management, which are all those that went out already, and the few that remain that probably will go out, when you look at that, you realize that the world has changed. And if you don't adapt, you'll disappear. As a public company, it's harder to manage that, because in reality, sometimes you have to say, well, this business, I have to get out of it. I'm losing money, no matter how much I invested and how much does it represent from the image of the business. So to do that, you have to, on a private issue, you say, the hell with it. In private, as a public company, oh my God, I'm going to show a loss of $50 million. And everybody tells you, well, but it's not cash. It's on the balance sheet. Yeah, okay, but the balance sheet, your balance sheet gets smaller and smaller and smaller. So, and the recognition that you made a mistake and you bought something that's not working, or that you cannot make it work better, it's also a blow to you personally. So if you care about what you do. So it has a lot of ways that it impacts what you do.